Hi, and welcome to Northern Adventure. You know, in a couple of videos back, we asked the question, did we have enough firewood for the year? And at the time we made that video, the answer was no, we didn't. And we had to get out there and probably make, another cord or two. One cord wouldn't have been enough. Maybe two would have been good. More is always better, even if you can get a head start for the next year. So I wanted to give a channel update here and answer the question. Did we get enough firewood? Coming up, I'm going to show you what we got. And then secondarily, a very important secondary subject. One that I think is important for us and maybe is important for you. And we'll get into that coming up next. Well, I got to thinking this morning that I needed to make this video because looking around, it's a beautiful day, but if I look just out there, I'll show you, I'll turn the camera around a little bit or give you a cutaway to see it. There's a little snow on the ground. We actually had to shovel the other day. It's a nice day today, 2 days later, because we had a real cold dip. Now we have a little bit of a warm up. That's going to last for 5-6 days. It's going to be back to fall weather instead of winter, but we definitely had a taste of winter a couple days ago. And we needed the firewood, and we had it. So while we were out making firewood, we were able to, I think, get a couple of cords. So we have the woodshed, we have the woodshed mostly full. And I say mostly because we've already been burning some of it, and we didn't have it 100% full, but I'll show you what we've got. So let me turn the camera on the wood, and we'll kind of pan over the wood and talk a little bit about what we have here. On the right side of the woodshed, what we have is 2 full stacks of wood. And we have a place for a third stack that's now empty. And the reason that's now empty is because we never filled that third stack up all the way. It was about halfway. And we actually have more wood to bring here for this woodshed. So I was cutting in a couple locations, both here and a little ways away. And from a little ways away, we filled up the woodshed on the other side with hardwood. I guess I should be clear. What you were just looking at in the previous shot was also hardwood, but it was mostly popple, a little bit of birch, and that doesn't produce as much heat as your more favored hardwoods like oak and hickory and things of that nature, maple. But what we have on the left side of the woodshed is 3 full stacks of oak, hickory, and maple with a little cherry here and there. So as I was saying, Denise and I were making firewood both here, directly on our property here, and at a property that we have not that far away. And we haven't hauled all of that wood here yet. This wood came from that other property, all this really nice dry hardwood. It's 3 years seasoned, so very nice and dry. I tested it all. It runs about 11% moisture with the moisture meter. And that's going to be good burning, high quality firewood. And this is what we rely on for the really deep cold winter months starting, mid-December, but definitely through January and February. So we want to preserve this, and meanwhile we'll burn the lesser hardwoods that are on the other side. Now, when we bring the rest of our wood back on the trailer, we've got a full 16-foot cargo trailer, cargo equipment trailer, style trailer full of wood, so of this kind of wood. And that's a huge amount of wood that we'll be bringing back, and I don't think it's all going to fit in here. And that's a problem I'm happy to have. We'll fill this all the way up, and that's definitely enough wood to get us through the winter. I think that gives us 6 full stacks, 3 on each side of the woodshed. Previous winters, what we've learned is that we usually go through about 4 stacks of firewood in the woodshed with about 2 left over. That's what happened last winter. So that's what I'm anticipating coming up. But there's another topic that we need to talk about, and that is supplemental fuel sources. So yes, we burn wood primarily, but we can't rely on wood 100%. There are times when obligations mean we have to be away from home, and we need a way in the wintertime to keep pipes from freezing, to keep the temperatures from dropping too far in the home, and there's a supplemental heat source that we use. So we need to do some maintenance on that heat source, on that supplemental heat source. So let's go take a look at that heat source. Here's our supplemental heat source, and I think you can tell exactly what this is. We've got a big 500-gallon propane tank right here, and we are at about 45% full. The tech who comes out and fills this tells me that they consider it full at 65%. So we filled this up before last winter. So we used 20% of our capacity, and so we pretty much have at least another full winter's fuel in this tank, if not 2 full winter's fuel in this tank before we still need to get that filled. This tank with 500 gallons is enough to provide supplemental heat for our home for almost 3 winters. That's incredible. But there's maintenance that we need to do on the furnace that runs on this propane. So let's go take a look. Well, this is our Trane XE80 propane furnace. And it's actually a natural gas furnace that's been converted. And when we went to start it up at the beginning of the year this year to make sure it was going to be operational, and we found out that it wasn't going to be operational. It would kick on and then it would kick off. So the flame sensor would not pick up full flame on all the burners. So that required a bit of diagnosis. Now, just a disclaimer, I have not yet had a chance to clean this for the year, so it's a little bit dusty. But I did diagnose what the problem was. Let's take it apart and take a look. First, I'm going to flip the switch to off. As a bit of a disclaimer, I am not an HVAC technician. This is just what I'm doing. If it's mildly entertaining or interesting to you, that's great. Hopefully you find it partially helpful. If you have any concern about doing any of this yourself, make sure you talk to an HVAC professional. They're going to know exactly how to do this. And depending on the type of furnace you have, it may or may not be more complex, or even perhaps, a simpler setup than what I have. In any case, what I have here is not particularly complicated. And just a brief tour of what we've got here. We've got the fuel line. Use my pointer. We've got the fuel line right here coming in and wraps around. And then right here we have 4 jets, 4 orifices. They look like this. I don't know if I can get you to see that. But we have 4, and we have 4 burners inside. And when I looked at those burners, I thought they looked like they were probably faulty. I'm going to show you why they were faulty. Well, this might be a little bit hard to see, but right back here is a metal plate that's held in with 2 screws, 2 sheet metal screws, and that plate holds down the 4 burners. So to remove and replace these 4 burners, it's just a matter of taking these 2 screws out and lifting this plate out. In some furnaces, particularly the high efficiency ones, this burner apparatus is completely enshrouded, and so doing this might be a lot more complicated. But in this case, we have really simple access. All right, these are 5/16. This is a 5/16 socket. I'm not sure you can read that on here, but it's a 5/16 socket to take these 2 screws out. All right, there's the hold down plate. And this hold down plate has a lip on it right here that goes at the top. It faces out toward you. So if you put it in this way with the lip facing in toward the furnace, that is incorrect. I don't think that's focusing there. Okay, so with this lip facing into the furnace, that's incorrect. The lip should face out when you reinstall it. So I'm just going to set that aside. All right, so the replacement part number for these burners on this furnace is BNR 01077. And not sure if I can get that here in focus. There you are. BNR 01077. So let's take one of these out and take a look at the new one. So here we have the new burner. You can see that's brand new. Now, something pretty important about the way these work. Let me hold this here for you so you can see it. Doing this backwards in the camera here. So gas comes in here, and then we have it exiting here at the burner end, through the small apertures here. And these wings right here are really of primary importance. These wings, when the furnace lights, allow the flame to propagate to the next burner over, lighting the next burner. If these wings are damaged, dirty, sometimes they're completely corroded and full of rust, that flame won't propagate and your furnace will not light. And that is the problem that I was having here. I did clean these burners so that we could get them working while we were waiting for the new burners to arrive, and that worked. So the furnace has been operational when we've tested it, but I'm not real happy with the state of these burners. So I'm going to take one out and show you. So as you can see, they just sit right in there. Here's one of the old burners, and it's important. It may be important to make sure these go back in the same way they came out. So if you take a look at this, we have a certain orientation of this design. If we flip it over, we can see that the sheet metal is folded. That on my furnace is facing down. So this reinstalls in this orientation. And so there's a new one, and there's an old one. That should be that. Now, taking a look at these together, you can definitely see the old one versus the new one. This one is very corroded. This one is very clean, perfectly pristine. And as you can see, these wings where the furnace flame propagates, not in great shape. So that's why we're replacing these. So let's just pluck the old ones out and put the new ones in. Now it's important to be careful with this one right here. It's not any more difficult to take it out, but right here behind it is the igniter, and the igniter is a little bit fragile. We don't want to bump that, so let's hope I'm careful and I don't bump it. But I will start on this end and put the new one in first on the left. All right, that's a nice clean fit. Another really nice fit. And to give myself room, I'm not going to install the one here just yet. I'm going to take this one out first and replace that. That's nasty. Okay, we're good there. And the final new one. Okay, we should be good there. Time to put the bracket back in. All right, getting these screws in can be a bit of a challenge. It's harder to get them back in than it was to take them out because the space is a little constricted unless you have small hands. So if you have a magnetic socket to hold onto your screw, that's going to make life a lot easier. And then you use that along with your extension and you can get that screw back in a lot easier. I've got the first one started and put the screw in here. You can see that. I'm going to go get the next one going here. Okay, so there we are. Now I'm going to tighten that down in the traditional manner. Put my 5/16 back on, get my ratchet, and let's tighten those down. And they don't need to be overly tightened, just snugged. All right, and that is replacing the burners in the Trane XC80. Let's see if we can fire this up and see if it'll work. All right, thermostat's calling for heat, so let's flip this back on. So that's a little bit of a furnace update, some new burners in the old furnace, and we've now got a full woodshed, and that means we're all set for winter. And there's a lot more to do for other ways to get set for winter, but for heat, we're good to go. So this has been Northern Adventure. I hope you like and subscribe. If you found this helpful, please do that, and we'll be back with more in upcoming videos. Thanks. Bye.